Welcome to SoulBlazing. I'm Lisa Haisha. Today's guest is the #1 lesbian fiction author, and she is a true trailblazer. Let's give it up for Nancy Healy. Hi. It's so good to have you here.
Thank you for having me.
I want to talk about what it is like to be lesbian in a Trump presidency.
A bit dystopian, a bit Orwellian. It's very strange and very different, I think, being out here on this coast or where I live on the East Coast than for a lot of people in the middle of the country, obviously, and a bit anxious. I think you would find most people feel very anxious right now about being LGBT in any way. Are our rights going to be stripped? Is my marriage going to go away? What happens to their adoptions?
Well, what has happened to you? Have you been the victim of hate since the
I
presidency?
haven't. I can't say that. I have not. And again, I think that has a lot to do with where I live, and I've been out for so long, and I kind of, things roll off me. So I might not know, to be honest with you, if someone was calling me some of the horrible names that people like to. I would probably roll off me more than it would other people because I'm very secure in who I am. But I would tell you that for the first time since coming out, I was in Ohio earlier this year with some friends. And for the first time I was with my wife, I didn't want to hold her hand where we were.
And how long have you been married?
Well, we've been together 13 years.
13 years.
We've been married 5. But I did not feel safe in that environment. It felt, you could feel the energy, you know, and you could see there were Nazi flags at some of the actual vendors at this place we were at, and a lot of Trump flags, and I just didn't feel comfortable being myself. And for me, that was a first, because I'm usually just there, and that's how things have shifted.
So what's your advice to people who have not come out, or younger people? Do you think it's wise to stay in the closet now or to come out?
I think it's a very personal choice. You know, I think you have to go with where you're at. I hear from readers all the time who are in that situation. Some are younger. I think what would surprise people is how many are older. A lot of the people who are struggling with who they are right now are not so much my son's age, who's 27 or younger. They're my age, in their 40s or their 50s, and still in marriages, you know, and things of that nature, and feel very threatened to come out. It's very frightening for them because they see it on both sides, you know, and don't have quite the acceptance that we'll say the millennials do.
Yes.
I think it depends on where you are, and I think it depends on your own family and what your values are.
So when people say, you know, scare the gay out of them or just beat the gay out of them, whatever it is they say, how do you feel about that? Because when did you know you were a lesbian or gay?
My mother would say she knew I was gay when I was 5. Right, because I had a crush on a Ned Funicello on the Mickey Mouse Club. So I'm not. Yeah, everyone did.
I wanted
you know,
to be her. Yeah.
I mean, you know, we all did. You know, I remember reading "Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret," and thinking she must have mastered that long before me. But, you know, when did I know? I don't. That's a hard thing to answer. I think I knew that I was emotionally more drawn to women very early. And I would say that all my friends that I went to high school with and junior high school with all say to me, I knew when you were 15. Well, did you maybe want to buy me a clue, you know, and help me through all those years that I didn't know? So hindsight is 20/20. But what I would say to people, you know, you can't scare the gay out of someone. You know, I always wonder what would happen instead of saying sexuality, we said emotionality. Because the minute we say sexuality, we're making it about a physical act, and we're not making it about an intimate relationship or a connection to someone. And falling in love with somebody is not the same as going off and having a one-night stand. People don't wake up one day and say, gee, you know, I think I'll be gay and I'll be marginalized, and, you know, that's not how it works. It just is who you are. And the choice is whether to deny who you are because it feels safer, or whether to be who you are and take that risk. And I think that's where people go awry.
Okay, so if you felt these feelings when you were younger, you did get married to a man.
Yeah.
Yes. How did that happen?
Well, I think, you know, people always talk about coming out, and I think they think about it in terms of like jumping through crepe paper and here I am, you know. For me, it was more of a lot of going in, putting your foot in the water. How warm is it? Can I do this?
Can you explain that a little further?
Yeah, the first time I tried to come out, I had a lot of resistance from my mom, or the first time in my teens where I knew my parents knew. It became very clear to me in my mother's reaction that was something you just couldn't be. And so I went hardcore the other way, which is what happens to a lot of people. Well, I'm not that. Denial is not just a river in Egypt, as they say, and so I met my husband, who was my boyfriend, and I got pregnant, which is actually how we ended up married, to tell the truth, and I had my son the day before my 21st birthday. And I think, I don't regret any of that. He knew before I knew, I think, my husband, that, I was more attracted to women. And so it was a little bit easier when he was very understanding about that. So I was lucky in that way. Not everybody's as lucky as I was. But I think that's what happens to a lot of people.
So you ended the marriage because of that reason? Or
Well, there were a lot of reasons.
a lot of reasons,
There
okay.
were a lot of reasons.
So that's
yeah,
a good
sure.
one.
That's a good reason.
That's
yeah.
a really good one.
I mean, you can't, he could never have with me what he deserved to have, and I could never have with him what I deserved to have.
So then what was your next step? What was your journey? Did you say, I want to meet somebody, or can you tell me about your first relationship with a woman?
Oh God, my first. It's like
Give me that juice.
It's like a twisted. Well, my very first lesbian kiss, we'll say, my first girlfriend. We were in New York. We took a train from Connecticut, and we were coming home. And I remember her leading me back through all the cars of the train. So we go past all the people. And I was like, either she's gonna, live out some scene from Throw Mama from the train, or I'm on the Murder from the Orient Express, and I'm gonna be killed or something. Why does she want to go to the back of the train? And I remember sitting there for a little while. I don't remember how it happened, but we were sitting just like this, and she leaned over and kissed me. And then I didn't really care if somebody killed me on the train, or if I got thrown off of it, because it was like coming home. It was just completely different. It was a very tumultuous relationship. She was not out. She's still not out, and that's 20 years ago. And so,
like you said, it's a personal
It is.
journey.
It's a personal
Yes.
choice and a personal journey. And, her family would not be overly accepting of that. And so there was a lot of that in my journey. So my journey wasn't just, here, I'm out. It was kind of, I'm out. Oh, now I have a boyfriend. Oh, I'm out. This would be easier,
Yeah, and it wasn't hard for you. Tell the story about your father. How did your mom and dad react?
When I finally really came out, I was 24. My father went into meltdown mode. He came home very intoxicated, threatened to kill himself, left the house, kicked me out of the house with my son. I was living at home at the time. And he was actually found in a car with a rifle, threatening to kill himself. When I came back, the funny part of this is, to my mother's house, when she called me, the cop that was there taking the statement was someone I went to high school with, not out to anybody. And here's my mom. Well, we had this big thing, and my husband left, and he's upset because my daughter is a lesbian. So now everybody's going to know, right, that I'm a lesbian. So he didn't speak to me for a year and a half after that. If I came into the house, he'd go in another room. And that was our dynamic for a year and a half.
Very hard.
It was very hard. It shifted over time. It shifted over time. It took time. And it took
Were
patience.
you still glad you decided to share that information, or would you hold off in retrospect?
No, I wouldn't.
You wouldn't?
No.
Yeah, you are such a big voice for this movement.
Yeah, I mean, again, I think it's a personal choice, but I think those of us who feel that we can do that, it's so imperative that we do it so that other people know they're not alone, and so that they can see that there are models who get through the crud that can happen, and that there's another side, that it's not all darkness. And that's very important to me, and that's why when I started writing, I like to be out there and I like to engage with people, because I remember when I first came out, and I've never been one to have big rainbows across my car or anything like that, but I do remember how profound it was for me to drive down the road and see a rainbow or a pink triangle on a car and realize I'm not alone. There are other people out there. And that was the 90s. It's a little different now. It was a lot different now. The models are out there far more than we've ever had before. But it's imperative that people have that. I didn't have that many when I was a kid.
So when did you decide to become a writer and to really write about lesbian relationships?
I kind of fell into the lesbian part of it, to be honest with you. I wanted to write a play, and I did. And I hadn't written characters in many years. You know, as a single mom working retail for a lot of years. And I started writing a story online, and you know, they have like Wattpad and things like that that you can write on. And a lot of my readers were like, you should write something, you know, lesbian, write something with. So I said, what would I want to write? And I just decided to write a story about a lesbian FBI agent who falls in love with a congressman's ex-wife. Nobody would see that coming. And as she's investigating these threatening letters, and write a political thriller, because that's what I love. So that's what I did. And people said, go ahead, go publish it. So I did. And it went to #1. I had in lesbian fiction on Amazon, and 5 in political thrillers on Amazon, and I had no expectation. And from there, it just blew up. And as I started getting more and more feedback from people, I realized, A, how much I loved writing it and seeing characters like me that I hadn't
And
had.
how needed it is.
Yeah, it is.
Because when I go to movies and I see lesbian or gays, whatever, they're always depicted in a certain way. They're sick,
true.
they get AIDS, there's always, it's tangled with problems. It's never just a regular person.
Yeah, I think that's true of a lot of marginalized groups. You know, the old tropes and the stereotypes are what we're familiar with, and we know that they'll play in media, and so they get played over and over and over. And breaking those is very important to me, you know, to be incidental about somebody's sexuality. So they happen to be a lesbian, or they happen to fall in love with a woman. And, you know, I've gotten some pushback from my own community about that. You're very kind of cavalier. I don't think that I'm cavalier about it, but there's a million models out there of people who struggle. And people need to be able to see themselves in a positive way. And moreover, people who aren't like us need to see us. You know, the most significant letter I ever got was from a father whose daughter was in her 30s and had gone through a divorce, had a little boy, and was in a lesbian relationship, and he was struggling. And he happened to see my first book, Intersection, in political thrillers, and read it not knowing it had a lesbian component. And the email was, you know, I read this, and she has a little boy who's 6, Dylan, and they're just like everybody else. It's just a regular family. And for me, that's the most, all the coming out, everything, that was the most profound letter I've gotten. Because what that was somebody who needed to see that it really is, his grandson's gonna be fine. He's in a loving family, he's with 2 people who care about each other, and it's not about all these tropes and these old stereotypes that people see.
Well, where do you see yourself going forward? What are your goals?
What do I want to do?
You're going to continue writing your stories, of course.
Absolutely.
But do you want to make a movie out of one of them?
I would love to make a movie or a television show.
Because you have such a strong voice and you're so good at developing characters. It would be wonderful if you could really carry the torch and really take that genre to the
I would
next
love
level.
to, and I would love to do, you know, a mainstream film project. And, you know, I actually, from a couple of lesbian more networks, we'll say, have had some people reach out in the past about things, and I don't want to do that, because not that I don't think it's needed, but it's there. And I really want to create things that go out to everybody, that bring people together. And so, yes, I would love to do that. It's a different exercise, you know, and so it's just like, you know, being on a talk show with someone, you know, you have to get out of your own way and learn how to do those new things and dive. And so that's, I think, coming in my future. But I still see myself writing books, because it is, it's not like work to me.
Oh, it's so therapeutic,
You know?
just to turn on the classical music and sit there and write and get into another world.
It's you get to take a journey, you
You
know?
do.
I get to travel the whole world without leaving my patio,
Yes, yes.
you know? And how many people can get to say that they do that?
Yes, and you get to create your own schedule. So where can people find you? How can they buy your books?
Oh, they can buy my books on Amazon and at Barnes & Noble, and all kinds of other bookstores. And they can find me at thebumblingbard.com. That's my company, because I'm a bit bumbling at times. And I would hope I'm a bard. I don't know. Some people might disagree with that. But you can find all of it there. My blog is there, and learn about me and what I write.
Well, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you.
Yeah.